Let's begin this hour, though, on Capitol Hill, where House Republicans are preparing to interview Hunter Biden for a deposition this morning. Still unclear, though, if the president's son will actually appear. Republicans have threatened to hold the president's son in contempt of Congress if he doesn't show up. Hunter Biden offered to sit for a deposition, but only in a public hearing. Republican committee leaders say he needs to be questioned behind closed doors first. Meanwhile, the Republican-led House expected to vote later today to formalize its impeachment inquiry into President Biden. House Majority Leader, Republican Steve Scalise of Louisiana, said a full floor vote on the resolution will take place later today, following yesterday's Rules Committee vote to authorize the probe. 4 years ago, now Speaker Mike Johnson argued against a single-party impeachment, taking place only 11 months before an election. But he argues now that's not what Republicans are doing here.
The founders of this country warned against a single-party impeachment for good reason. They feared that it would bitterly and perhaps irreparably divide our nation. As the next election in 2020 is drawing so close now, and their candidates for president are so terribly weak, they obviously met somewhere at liberal high command about 75 days ago and convinced Nancy Pelosi they had to pull the trigger. I hope and pray that future Congresses can and will exercise greater restraint.
So the moderates in your caucus would say, why not exercise greater restraint now?
Well, we've shown great restraint. I mean, there are a lot of people who are frustrated that this hasn't moved faster, but there's a big distinction. I stand by every word I said in that video. There's a big distinction between what's happening now and what the Democrats do. Those are rushed, sham impeachments. They did it quickly. They did not follow any of the procedures that I just described. We have 3 committees investigating this and following the truth where they lead, and they have no option in doing anything else. It's Ways and Means, Judiciary, and Oversight, and they've uncovered some alarming facts about the Biden family and their dealings.
Smoke, no fire. Joining us now, Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Dan Goldman of New York and Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Gentlemen, good morning. I use that term not as my own, but as something that Chairman Comer has used before. He said, well, we see an awful lot of smoke, no fire yet, but that's why we're opening this inquiry to see if there's any fire behind that door. So, Congressman Goldman, as someone who worked around and advised the committees around impeachment of President Trump, what's your reaction to the way this is being conducted, and do they have a point that we're just asking questions here with an inquiry?
Well, in 2019, we brought in 17 fact witnesses who all had firsthand knowledge of the situation in Ukraine and Donald Trump's abuse of power. In this investigation, there has not been a public hearing with a single fact witness, and every closed-door deposition has actually undermined the specious allegations that the Republicans are bringing. This is a bogus sham impeachment with no evidence whatsoever. And the notion that they need to move forward for some sort of procedural reason is completely bunk. The Biden administration has been way more cooperative than they need to be, and certainly far more cooperative than Donald Trump was when he provided 0 documents to the congressional impeachment inquiry in 2019. The administration has provided witnesses, 100,000 and more documents. The problem here is not that they don't have the materials. The problem here is that they don't have any facts to support their allegations of any wrongdoing by President Biden.
And by the way, Congressman Moskowitz, we've heard from Republicans there's a 2-tiered system of justice that favors Democrats, but it is, in fact, the Department of Justice under the Biden administration that is the one now prosecuting Hunter Biden.
No, of course, we heard that the Department of Justice is prosecuting Hunter Biden as a cover-up. I mean, I guess the reason Donald Trump has been indicted by the federal government, New York and Georgia, must be trying to cover up all of Donald Trump's crimes. I mean, it's obviously totally ridiculous, but, you know, they're feeding that to their echo chamber, who believes anything that they say. But I want to go back, Willie, to this sham impeachment that Representative Goldman talks about. Let's go back to the beginning. Joe Biden is sworn in, and within days of his swearing in, before a hearing, before any documents, before any witnesses, before any depositions, members of the Republican Party, members of the Oversight Committee that we sit on that committee with, are filing articles of impeachment within days of President Biden's inauguration. Then they have all these hearings, multitude of them, and it winds up with the last hearing that we had a couple of months ago, which was complete failure theater. And their own witness, their constitutional scholar, their impeachment witness says everything we know, the tens of thousands of documents that the White House has turned over, something that the Trump administration never did, their witness says it doesn't rise to the level of impeachment. It was totally an awkward moment. But what this is about at the end of the day is that Donald Trump has 50% of the impeachments in American history, and he has 100% of the indictments. And Joe Biden has none of that. And so they can't save Donald Trump. But what they're trying to do is please the former president by putting numbers on the board on Joe Biden, even though there is no evidence of that. You just heard the Speaker Johnson, say that he prays, and he compares himself to Moses, by the way, but he prays that, they won't impeach a president because they don't like him. Well, apparently his prayer is not going to be answered because hypocrisy knows no bounds in the Republican majority.
Congressman Goldman, a quick question for you first, then a follow-up. Have you received word if Hunter Biden is going to appear today to testify?
I've not received any word. I don't think it sounds like what I read in the press. The committee has not either, and okay. I think he has been pretty convincing and pretty certain that he will happily show up and answer every single question under oath. But he wants to do it directly to the American people because the Republicans have manipulated their closed-door depositions in an egregious and misleading way, and he does not want to be subject to that after he has received such vicious attacks from the Republicans. Jonathan, 2 of 16 closed-door depositions by the Republicans have been released to the public, even though they promised to release all of them. They cannot be trusted, and it's clear that Hunter Biden understands that, and that's why he wants to talk to the American people directly. And the question then becomes, what are the Republicans hiding? Why won't they let Hunter Biden testify under oath directly to the American people?
So let me follow up just then. If indeed he doesn't show, your Republican colleagues have threatened to hold him in contempt of Congress. What would your reaction to that be? Would that be an appropriate measure?
Well, it's almost laughable that you have the chairman of the Judiciary Committee threatening to hold someone who is willing to testify in contempt when he himself blanketly defied a congressional subpoena, refused to testify in any way, shape, or form. As Congressman Moskowitz says, the hypocrisy knows no end with this Republican Party. And I dare Chairman Jordan to try to bring a witness willing to testify publicly under oath, under contempt of Congress.
All right, Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Dan Goldman and Jared Moskowitz, thank you both very much. We'll be watching today.